Hi, I'm Almark here today with We Are the New Underground, and I have with me Phil, and we're going to talk about his music today and some of the things he's done as a musician over the years. How's it going,
It's
man?
it's awesome. It's great to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So we tried to do this a while back, and well, we're doing it again. So
Yeah,
uh,
technology for you. It's like I mess with my hardware sense and know everything about them, know about Macs, but sometimes solutions are a unique one.
yeah, so we wanted to know about the music scene these days. How have you
Sure.
been doing with it?
It's been a real challenge breaking in. I've been a dawless musician making electronica and techno for the last 2 years, and in that time, I found it to be the most insular, gatekeeping, and sometimes flat out nepotistic crowd of musicians. After having been part of the Chicago scene since I was around 16 years old, um, it's a real struggle I've noticed in electronic music compared to rock. Trends are very strong, and if you're not following a trend, it really puts you in a position where you're not able to succeed as quickly as you may. Your music may be valued as.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people on the internet that like to tell you things like they want to misjudge you because you're not trying hard enough, or they're not really looking into your life. They don't know what's going on with you. So there's a lot of that on the internet these days, and I think a lot of us independent artists are getting a little bit tired of that. And have you dealt with that as well?
I definitely have. Early on, I suffered quite a bit of hate on social media, and it led to me discovering that there was a chat room created by a group of people who disliked my music solely to make fun of my music. And at one moment I felt bad, thinking, "Wow, is it that bad?" And the next moment I thought, "This is motion. If I'm making people feel some sort of way that they have to build a community around hating me, it's not exactly what I'm looking for." But I kind of laugh at it. It's a shame that that's the community that it is, though. Coming from the rock community, especially the metal community, it's very friendly and very open in Chicagoland. Bands that are a lot larger will support smaller bands. Here, everybody's trying to get the top bill, and it makes it a real challenge even to get in the door.
Yeah, and you're noticing something up in Chicago. You said that the rave scene. What kind of music are you exactly making? You're bringing back that rave sound from the 1990s and kind of infusing your own thing. Go ahead and tell me what that's all about.
For sure. So initially, I made a lot of experimental electronica, which was still dance music, but it was much more tame. It was very quiet. It was meek, if I will. When I look back at it, it wasn't bad music, but I didn't produce it. I just let the synths poop out whatever they were playing right into the computer, and I didn't even mix them. I had so little experience, and in the last 9 months, I've completed 2 years of college to get started on an audio engineering degree. And what I've done is I've, instead of screaming into the void, I've targeted an audience. And in Chicago right now, there's two big electronic scenes. You have house, which drives me crazy. It's the most boring, formulaic form of dance music I feel has been popular in the last 20 years. Um, and then we have rave music, and rave music really is, as it's been said, is techno is everything that hasn't been heard yet, and that's what I'm making is rave techno. I'm making heavy, 150 BPM and up, pounding bass line, trippy synthesizer noises that are homemade. You've never heard anything like this before. It makes you get out of your seat, dance, whether you're sober, whether you're on something. It's a good time.
Yeah. Do you see the scene changing?
I do, the rave scene is becoming a lot larger than it was this time last year. What I'm noticing is that people want to go to raves. I hear that from the community around music that I'm part of, and it's fun because, for years raves were considered kind of passe here, and they still had large parties and they would organize events with music aimed at dancing, but there was nothing quite like a real warehouse rave or a basement rave or under a overpass rave, something that was genuine, something that was underground, something clandestine where you had to know somebody who knew where it was taking place to even participate. And right now, that scene is rebuilding itself. The music people want to hear is heavy bass driven music, and they're tired of the same EDM style. They're ready for something that is including these elements of melody, bass, and synthesis without having to turn to EDM. And that's where I'm coming in. I'm totally trend free. I make
Yeah.
everything myself.
And no more of that whoop 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 music. Yeah. So I've noticed the scene is pretty much inundated with this idea that you have to get on top of your decks and act like a fool. What do you think about that?
When I first got the synthesizers, I wondered what it would be like to perform live. And I thought, this is really early on. And within a few weeks of getting the synthesizers, I booked a show. And it was so funny, I played terribly. But the thing that made the biggest impact, I feel like overall, was, people expect electronic music to all sound the same, and when they hear something different, it scares them away. Um, it
Yeah.
turns them into a place where they haven't been before, and especially if they've maybe taken something, they're not as comfortable as they might be with familiar music. The music I'm making is familiar. It harks back to the Prodigy, everything from Aphex and Autechra all the way up to your hardest hard style that's out now. Um, and I think it's something that can really create a community.
There is a lot of stuff going on in the scene these days. I don't want to be too negative about it, but there's a if you do change something up like that, you get a lot of hate. Is that right?
I've seen a lot of people say some really ridiculous things about my music. Everybody will face critics as an artist, and I was prepared for that. I've spent 25 years in IT, and I faced, CEOs and major head honchos screaming in my face. So hearing some teenager on the internet crap on me doesn't make me squirm, but uh, what does make me feel a little uncomfortable is that they don't understand it, without the ability to get them to perceive what I'm doing the way that I perceive it. Uh, it was a real struggle, and I realized later on that the problem was production.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind We Are the New Underground was to help the artist since 2014. And I think it's been a real benefit to a lot of people since over 500 in total, maybe more, considering we have all these different sub labels. And it's really brought a lot of attention to these musicians. But it doesn't work unless you have a fan base, or at least you can try to build one through the community. And I've just been really working at that. So when I first started it in summer, I had dealt with the same situation. I had my music out there, and I went to a EDM forum, not knowing what it was, because I just thought, hey man, electronic, we're all friends here, right? And somebody said to me, where's the drop? And they were really hateful about it, and that kind of fueled my fire for a long time. That helped me build WEATNU, and I realized that the experimental community was being stomped on, not appreciated, and the EDM scene was so big they were making $200,000 a night, and that was making it very difficult for experimental artists because I thought, what happened to the 1990 days, 1990s, 1999 when the amp on MTV was there, and it was showing all these guys, DJ Coldcut, Ninja Tune, Warp Records, Apex Twin, all of these guys, Boards of Canada. It's like, Gus Gus,
Oh yeah.
and what happened to that? Where did it go? And so I thought I want to bring this out because I started noticing in the circle on Twitter that there was a group of people making experimental music, and I thought, hey, you know what? This could go somewhere. So this circle started, and I said, when my friend Nessie Holt one day, who was she has her own blog, and it was around 2014, and I said, we are the new underground, and she said, yeah, yeah, we are. So that's where the whole idea came from, that we are the new underground. All of us are the new underground. We are the digital version of what they were doing back in the 70s. Kind of like a coalition, you know what I mean?
I can definitely feel like a punk uprising style feel coming, in our local scene. At a time, maybe 10 years ago, things were so cookie cutter, and they changed for a short period of time where music really in Chicago stood out, especially rock music. And within the last few years, we've kind of reverted to this formulaic style. We have house and we have garage rock. Everything in between exists, but it's hidden. It's so far underground that finding it takes knowing members of the band, knowing artists performing the music, and being connected so well to a scene that you spend a majority of your time socializing with the scene.
So the underground still exists outside the internet.
It absolutely does. It's there. I've done basement raves. I've
It's
played
always been there.
those, yeah, in
Yes.
places that you wouldn't fit 50 people on a normal day. We had 80 people just raving, and it's a great feeling to improvise some techno and make some people dance and just keep it going. And using hardware, it gives you the ability to really innovate and make unique sounds that aren't being made by other artists, and design sounds that make people really think, what am I hearing?
Yeah. I've always made music for my own benefit because it just seems to flow in that direction of what am I doing for myself? I'm not really looking to please anybody. I'm not really looking to get a genre out there. I've just kind of, went forward because I didn't know what I was doing. I was making electronic music back in 1998, 99, and I didn't know where it would go. I just kind of flowed with it because of the influences I had, because I have an industrial EBM, kind of a influence there. So that electro sound that comes from the early 80s, because I grew up to like old school hip hop, and I kind of have that in my drum beats when I make music. But these days, it just keeps going somewhere. And WEATNU and my own personal, kind of like record label, Cento Electro Records, it's just there as a placeholder, for people. But you've been talking about this, your dawless setup, and you use the electron, right? The electrum. Yeah, you use the particular dawless device to make your
You got
music.
it. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got the Syntact and the Digitone 2. I recently upgraded by selling some Pokemon cards. I was able to get a $2,000 synthesizer. Thank you, Pokemon. It was a real huge upgrade too. It's really expanded what I'm capable of designing sound wise. It's really exciting. I've started writing the album that will follow my summer release, and the first song sounds unlike anything I've ever made. So it's exciting to me.
Yeah. So, you've been making music for how long these days?
So I started playing guitar when I was 10 years old. I got a one string acoustic guitar out of the attic of my grandmother's house, and I strummed that string until it finally broke when I was 13 years old. Some big life changes happened around that time, and talked to my family one last time and said, please let me play guitar. And my grandma went and bought me a Squire Strat pack when those first launched, and I remember being so excited. I'd stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning waiting for my favorite song to hit the radio so I could learn it. I would tape it on a cassette tape. As you could probably recall, you had to wait to hear the song you loved unless you bought the CD or the album. It was pretty much a waiting game, and all I had was a tape deck, so it was a matter of recording off the radio, replaying it, and learning songs. I played in metal and grunge bands until about 2018. I had a car accident that disabled my fretting hand, and for 3 years I didn't make music, and it tortured me. I tried to live with it, but I tried learning lefty guitar. I tried open tunings. I tried using my thumb. And nothing replaced the skill that I had, and it brought me into a deep depression. And started playing video games and lazy things that really don't bring you any productivity. And realized I needed big change and moved from Phoenix back home to where I grew up in Chicago, knowing that the scene here is more dance oriented. And I tried out a lot of synthesizers thanks to my Sweetwater rep. I went through one after another until I found something that felt like playing guitar to me, that allowed me to use my understanding of music theory to write polyrhythmic music with melodies that were unique and never before heard. Uh, the Electron devices were those devices for me, and since then I haven't looked back. I spent 40 to 60 hours a week on these machines. I've read the manual so many times that I can practically repeat it. I've even found features that they hid and didn't put in the manual. It's been a
Oh yeah,
real
that's bonus.
journey.
Yeah, that's a real bonus when you do that.
That was some pretty cool stuff.
The whole idea behind the dawless thing is really, it's pedaled in the metal. You don't have to deal with the DAW, and that's how I started. I recorded from my Yamaha DJX and Mirage, which is right here, and Mirage and Sonic, and it went straight to DAW, but it was, from the synthesizer to the DAW, you know, and everything is now built into the box nowadays, software synthesizers and all that. And it's got to the point now where everything is just, software, and people are going back to hardware again, like you are, and there seems to be some sort of flack on that sort of thing. And yeah, I know you had some problems with that.
I've definitely faced criticism to my approach at making electronic music in today's world, surrounded by EDM and EDM offshoots. People hear the noise these machines make and they don't understand synthesis and sound design. I watched a video of Skrillex today saying he made one of his most famous snare drums by popping a pop can tab. And I thought to myself, genius. But at the
That
same
is,
time, I thought to
yeah,
myself, there's no sound design in it. There's no science behind it. There's just a recognition that that sound sounded good. And that's fine. But I
yeah,
wanted to do something musical. And as a guitarist, I wanted to play an instrument trying the different synthesizers, they all had different workflows, and some of the workflows were very non-musical. They felt like working in a DAW, very cold, very much building a song out of structure strictly. No passion that goes into pressing down on a string on a guitar or a button on the synth, timing your change, going halftime, suddenly, really presenting yourself in a musical presentation instead of one that's just programmed into a computer to play it over and over again exactly the same.
Right. And you were speaking about Skrillex. His album Leaving, his EP Leaving is the one album I realized, this guy has real talent, and
He's
he's
great.
doing that bro step thing, and it's just not enough. And when people heard him do Leaving, which I know that's got to be who he really is, it I thought, this is great, but they didn't like it. The critics didn't like it. And I think it's unfortunate that a musician like himself can't really bring out what he really wants to do. And he can probably sneak it in now and then because he's so popular. But if you want to be who you are in the scene, you have to bend over backwards for the scene. And WEATNU is not like that. It's like the musician comes here, come as you are. Put your music out there. Let's see if people listen to it or not. And so these podcasts are a way to bring that out, show who you really are as a musician. And being this our first one, and I'm really glad to have you with us. It's
I
been really,
appreciate it. I
yeah.
pride myself on authenticity in all walks of my life. My music is completely authentic. It comes from my heart, my soul, my passion to make people feel good, my passion to drive people to heal from the sound of my music. And that's really all I want to do is find a way to bridge a gap between where I'm at and where that goal lies.
I've always believed that music is a living soul. Um, Over the years, I've delved into what I call the void, and it's like a vacuum of space. And I've actually entered into the cone of silence. And when you find the cone of silence, something happens. I don't know what it is about that, but I've only reached it maybe 2 times in the last 25 years. And that that sound, when you get into that, you're doing something that only, kind of tunes to your own frequency kind of thing. And it becomes so overwhelming that it's like you can't take it. The emotions are just washing over you. And if you can find that in your work, you've achieved something spectacular.
It's really honestly what I go for is I make music that I wish was being made. I couldn't shred guitar anymore and I had done it for so long and it was what allowed me to express myself. And it took time to learn that level of expressiveness on the synthesizers. But I feel at this stage, especially with the summer album, people are going to see how expressive these digital machines really are and what they're capable of doing aside from what's already been done. They're going to hear something they've never heard before. I released 2 songs the other day and I decided to play guitar on one. I made a guitar song with a dubstep beat. Just real relaxing, chill song with some feedback layers, and you never know what you're going to get out of me.
Yeah. And there's one man who I think he's from the Netherlands or something. He makes music on I think the same unit you do. And I've seen some pretty impressive stuff coming out of him. He's quite kind of like a minimal techno.
That's cool. I definitely dig so a little bit of minimal. I'm a pretty dense and tension building songwriter. I like to pack my songs with polyrhythms and layer them on top of each other. Make transitions that are shocking. I try and keep it musical while also really innovating with sound design. uh, using sounds that you don't hear in popular electronic music. But most importantly, um, I make the music I want to hear. I try and make songs that I know I'll listen to, whether people listen to it or not.
So you have your stuff out there on Bandcamp right now?
I'm on Bandcamp, Spotify, the whole nine yards. You can find me as Feel with two F's. If you can't find me, you may need to search a song title. Bandcamp is a good place to find those titles. My Bandcamp is simply just Feel with two F's at bandcamp.com, and you can snag those songs there exclusively up until the 13th, when they'll be released everywhere else.
We have just opened a new sub label, Echo Station, and it's based on experimental dance music and underground experimental dance. And I'm pretty excited about it because it's going to bring some new people forward. It's going to get us out in the scene better. And we've been around for 10 years through WEATNU Records and various sub labels. But Echo Station used to be a internet radio station of ours back in 2015, and you can read about that on our magazine website, and that's magazine.wetnewrecords.com. And so the other thing is that where do you think music is going these days, especially how is WETNU helping the music scene? Do you see anything like that? You've read the vision, you've understood it.
I think the biggest thing is keeping the underground alive. The underground is a fundamental part of music. You know, all of popular music originates in the underground.
Yes.
It's distilled from a raw form of expression that somebody decides to bring forward and present without fear and without shame. And WETNU is definitely doing that by embracing a number of different label options, supporting a bevy of different genres, keeping the underground going across those genres. Um, Echo Station can be a really cool opportunity. There are so many major labels these days in the electronic industry, and there are little ones too. But I think when you stick with the underground, people tend to follow you more than when you follow the mainstream. What new following trends? I don't see that happening. Um, it's a positive thing to me because without following trends, you innovate, truly develop something new, and you offer something to people to explore and say, hey, I love it, I hate it, but whatever I feel, I'm feeling something from this new sound.
And we've had a lot of various things over the years. When we were doing just electronic, we had, the post punk scene was also with us back in 2014 and 15. So over the years, WETNU has kind of expanded out to what it really was to begin with. The vision continues. Now the vision is that, all of these different things that I had put out in my thoughts years ago, what can we do to make this thing work better? By spreading it out and putting it in various sub labels, including WETNU Records being the main, it has given people the opportunity to find that niche that they've been looking for. And I think that was the key missing ingredient. And it's all free to join. Nobody has to pay anything per year, you know, and you get 70%. So I've always said, what does a person have to lose? They don't even have to change their label. They can come to a non-exclusive, you know, label and have all the tools they need because that's what it's all about, giving them free tools.
Empowering artists is so important. Right now, we're so independent and forced to do every single job ourselves. I was writing a list of jobs that I do every day to be feel, and I had a list by the end of it over 20 jobs that I do every day. Whether it be make music, engage social media, engage PR, write music, compose music, um, troubleshoot hardware. It consumes you. puts you in this manic mode. You know, sometimes I'll be up 3 4 days working on a song because I won't let the idea die, and until it's finished, it's not time for sleep.
And that is the very reason I made these podcasts, because I wanted to tell people musicians are not lazy. We might not have a big scene that we're around. We don't have a large live following, but we're not lazy. We actually put forth the effort. Had it not been for 10 years ago, half the musicians that you hear about in the underground on the internet probably wouldn't have been known at all. You know, WEATNU is trying to help these musicians. And what is wrong with, trying to help musicians? What is wrong with working hard? But they want you to know you're not working hard enough. You're not putting enough content out there. And, that's just not something that I want to hear. So the misjudging of the musician is a real bad problem these days, and you have proven that that's not what's happening at all. You are doing the work. You're telling people, hey, I'm doing the work. That's what this is all about. Getting the understanding to people that if we don't do anything at all, we're not going to be heard at all. And we barely even scrape by and find a few people per year, not to mention there's no career in it, unless, of course, you're making a lot of, streaming, and we know how that goes. And if you're not playing live, So what do you think about the people that are being the naysayers of that particular realm? What would you say to them?
I would say, you need to open your mind up. You know, they say the average person forgets to look at new music by the time they're 30 years old, and if you think of a lifespan, average lifespan 70, 80 years old, they give up halfway through life and they just listen to the same thing over and over again. And at the end of the day, give it a listen, open your mind, explore what other people are feeling and thinking, feel the music, feel the emotion behind it, and really reconnect with the way you originally heard music when you first fell in love with it. People forget it. They become complacent. They're used to hearing the same 10 songs over and over. Hearing something new, it's shocking, puts them in a position of discomfort. But I'm open to, trying new things over and over again till I can find a way to not necessarily become famous or huge, but to connect with a fan base that feels good listening to my music.
And that's exactly the way I felt for years. Find your fan base, and that's what WETNU was meant to do. And I think being online through YouTube and doing these podcasts will kind of bring to light some of the things that's been hiding for 10 years. I don't know what you think about that. What is your thoughts?
I was chatting with somebody about AI music the other day, and they were a doomsayer claiming that AI music was going to eliminate musicians, and it's so powerful now that it can, do anything any musician could ever do. And I responded, I said, look, AI is going to wipe out generic music, is what it's going to do. It's only capable of producing generic music. I've played with practically every public music AI, some betas, some that allow you to create a song from scratch, some that allow you to upload your own music and ask it to try and create a song just like it. Nothing has been able to copy me. I've tried giving it prompts paragraphs long, different songs. It can't duplicate innovative musicians. We're still ahead of the game.
And
But
that's a
we've
good
been
thing.
swept under the rug for 25 years while this industry has been absorbed by technology. And it's become auto tuned. It's become perfectly clear with no sound floor. And it's become absolutely formulaic. So I'm excited to bring something new to the table and hope that the people that hear it are excited as I am.
What are you doing as far as making music is concerned? How are you getting people to hear it? Because I know you have a pretty good following.
It's funny. I do social media engagement. I had never owned a social media account. I'm 40 years old. I started my very first accounts 2 years ago when I began this at 38. Um, I I guess the best way to put it is I share myself with my fans. I engage them. I don't just respond. I have conversations. I give them insight into what I'm thinking, where my music comes from. I give them lip if I feel like it. Uh, I give them, feedback on their own music. I try to participate in the community in any way I can, whether it be writing a beat for a 17-year-old rapper who just wants a beat for free, or whether it be,
Yeah.
creating a piece of graphic art for an album that somebody's releasing that, contacts me. I just want to be part of this community as much as I possibly can and contribute as much as I can, because what I really want to be remembered for at the end of the day when it's all over is what I contributed to music.
Yeah. I believe the same way. Being the experimental artist, all I wanted to do was contribute to the music scene while, being part of history, pretty much. And you're using your abilities to get people to hear you, but you're not using social media. What are you using?
Well, I have taken up social media. I'm on Threads, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, you name it, I'm there. I'm
So you're
most
connecting with people.
Yeah, I'm definitely spending a lot of time engaging. I'm usually hitting about 100,000 engagements a month right now. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of expressing yourself. Maybe at times where you don't feel good. Sometimes you get sick, you get a cold. You don't want to sit there
Mhm.
and stare at your screen, but I do it because I know I need to answer those fans who want to know more.
So you're following people continually.
Absolutely.
This is probably everybody doesn't even know that. We like to cut it off at a certain point because we want to get back to making music again. And being somebody who drives the car in WEATNU, they have to be a musician. So, what else do you do? People who are not musicians end up becoming label owners, and it doesn't work because they're thinking from the mind of the people out there. They're not thinking from the mind of the musician. That's why they're so successful, though. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
they're listening to the mind of the music lover, not the mind of the musician. But at the
Right.
same time, the mind of the musician is being hurt because you're not being creative. That is what WEATNU did. WEATNU leveled the playing field and got rid of that old corporate attitude. And so what you've told me here is that you're working really hard, and that lets people know that, hey, we musicians don't sit on our butt. We actually do
Never.
something. And so it's kind of like, if we don't do something, what are we going to do at all? We're not going to have anyone find us. It's not like we're not posting our music. It's not like we're not uploading it. So these could very well be just a modern day troll. Whatever they are, they could be disgruntled people. They could be failed musicians. Whatever they are, they themselves need to understand that there's a place out there that cares about you as a musician, and that's WEATNU, because it's the hub of the digital underground. And I think it's been really helpful to a lot of people over the years. They pour into my email once in a while. Here's this new person. Can you help me out? Can you put me here? Let me. I'm 99.5% of the time you're able to get on Wet New Records. I mean, I don't make it hard because I don't believe a person should have to be groveling and begging the record label put me on your record label. If the music doesn't fit, like if it's something that doesn't, it's way too mainstream, probably not a place for you. But most of the time, people who are unique and have innovation end up on WEATNU Records. And we're not popular by any means. And I don't think we ever will be unless people spread the word. And I've been trying to get people to do that for 10 years. And like I said, it's been really great having you here, man. And I
Likewise,
think
thank
we've
you.
really covered a lot of stuff here that I believe will help people.
I hope so. It's something I don't get an opportunity to do much. Is it, kind of get out there and express what this whole idea of who feel is, what I am doing, why I'm doing it, and the challenges that led me to it. Um, I appreciate very much you letting me go into a little bit of that and sharing my insight into the music scene.
Yeah. And just want to see if we can do this again in the future, hopefully. And
Yeah,
other people are allowed to be on our podcast. Please get with me at wetnewrecords.com under contact, or you can contact us on our Facebook at Wet New Records. And so I'm here with Phil today, and he lives up in Chicago. And so he's been making this music for about, how long has it been now?
doing the dawless thing for about 2 years. Just hit the 2 year mark
Yeah.
last month.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to more podcasts in the future. And I'm Almark here with We Are the New Underground.
Peace.